Hello and welcome to Sensitive Changemakers, the podcast where we celebrate the power of sensitivity and introversion in leadership, entrepreneurship and beyond. I'm Kate Carter, your host, a certified professional coach, HSP and introvert who's passionate about helping you embrace your unique gifts and lead with authenticity. Let's dive in. Hello, I hope as always this episode finds you well. I hope you're having a lovely summer, and if you're in the UK and you have children, I hope you are surviving. It has been quite the journey these last few weeks, and I wanted to really share how I'm seeing being highly sensitive show up in business and how to navigate being a highly sensitive entrepreneur. And the reason for this is, number one, just what I've been going through the last month. I don't really want to go into a huge amount of detail because I'm still very much in it. I know last podcast episode, if you're interested, I shared a little bit more, but I really wanted to delve into kind of the visibility and the marketing side of things, because this is something I'm really passionate about. It's something that I've always been interested in, language and how we use it and the power of that. And I'm always looking at ways of deepening my understanding of that to support myself, but also to support my clients. And what I've noticed is that there is still this hustle culture in the online space. There is very much just do this, that kind of just attitude, I like to call it anyway, that just do this, just put this into place, just follow these rules. And I feel like I'm quite lucky in the fact that I've never been attracted to that kind of marketing anyway, but I know a lot of people are, and I can absolutely understand why, because our brain latches onto anything that feels like it's going to be easier. That's just how our brains work. And even though I don't get caught out on that one, there are lots of different marketing techniques that I do get caught out on. So this isn't to say that I am better than anybody else. There are so many kind of marketing strategies that I do fall for. And that is because, like I said, our brain latches onto something that is easy because it wants to conserve energy. This is a kind of human part of us. And so normalizing that if you've been courting this. But what I really wanted to kind of talk about was what I see to be so true for us as highly sensitive as entrepreneurs, and what we really need to kind of ensure that we have in our business, so that we can feel grounded, so that we can make decisions from a very neutral place that's actually going to support us and our business moving forward. And I'm going to give a shout out to Rachel Radway in her book Perceptive. If you've not read it, I'll put the link in the show notes. I did interview her a couple of weeks back, and I'll put the link in the show notes for the podcast as well. But she's got a great book, and she talks about being highly perceptive, which I actually like. I like the term highly perceptive. She does explain how that crosses over to being highly sensitive, and the connotations and the negative connotations, should I say, surrounding the word sensitive or highly sensitive. So I really do like the word perceptive. And she talks about conversations with like-minded people, so people who are also highly sensitive, and how they've navigated through leadership. And she also talks about the crossovers between being highly sensitive and being neurodivergent, which I think is such an interesting conversation. And it really brought it to me as I was reading it. I'm about 3/4 of the way through at the moment, that as highly sensitives in business, we really do need that extra support to enable us to stick it out, to see it through, to be the successful business owner that I know you can be. And that isn't to say that you're weak or that you're broken, or that something isn't right with you, because that is not the case at all. I really do see being highly sensitive as very much a gift, but with any gift we need to have the support around that to ensure that that gift really gets shared in the best possible way. So I wanted to go over my thinking behind it, and then what we can do to ensure that we have this good, strong foundation. So obviously all human beings have this need, or our brains have this need, should I say, to keep us safe and to survive. And like I said before, our brain will always pick the easiest route because it wants to conserve energy, unless obviously we pattern interrupt that. But it will also do everything in its power to keep us in our known patterns. And that is because through experience, it knows that even if these things don't make you happy, even if these things frustrate you, they have kept you alive and you're still around, and therefore that's okay. So whenever we are stepping out of our comfort zone, when we're trying something new, it's tough. It is tough because our brain is going, well, this is new. I don't know if you're going to be okay here. Let's bring you back to what you've done before, because I know that works. Like, you'll still be alive if you do the things you've always done. Whereas if you do these new things, I'm not sure that I can protect you. So it comes from a good place. I know I'm personalizing the human brain, but hopefully that makes sense. And we have our nervous system that can, as a human being, can get overwhelmed and burnt out by lots of different things. But if you're highly sensitive on top of that, we do feel things more deeply. And according to a lot of research that's coming out, we have these active mirror neurons. HSPs have these, which is apparently our reason for empathy. So we have these mirror neurons that are part of our brain cells that help us to understand what someone else is feeling. So we can recognize other emotions in other people and relate to them. And that can add a lot of different things into our nervous system that actually wasn't ours to begin with. And I know that this, from a very personal viewpoint, is, I think, where a lot of my panic attacks and anxiety came from when I was younger, because I couldn't distinguish between what was mine and what was somebody else's. So we do have more of a sensitive nervous system. So it makes sense that we are going to get, or we could get, more overwhelmed more easily. We are also more introspective. And this was highlighted to me a couple of weeks ago when I had my first panic attack that I've had in over 8 years. And without going into too much detail, I did feel incredibly embarrassed and like I'd gone backwards, and I really had to reframe that. But I realized that when I do have these triggers, like we all do, we all get triggered into a fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whichever one of those we get triggered into. Mine generally is flight. That is what I want to do. I just want to run away. When we get triggered into those, we generally go into ourselves. We get more introspective. We get lost in our head, our thoughts, what's going on. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to get back to that balance. And from the outside looking in, it can look like we're not very happy or we're sad. And that might be the case for some of us. But for others, I know for me in the last few weeks, that wasn't the case. It was just I was trying to figure things out. I was trying to understand what had gone on and how I could get back to my balance, how I could get back to homeostasis. And and I'm saying this because I know this is quite specific to me, but a couple of years ago, or 10 years ago, I would have needed support with that because I would have found it very difficult to get out of those thoughts. But that's not me now. So I just wanted to kind of give you both of those kind of takes. You might be somebody who does need support in understanding what's going on. I just know that I've been doing this for so long now that I just needed to figure it out on my own. I just needed that time. So we do have this. We have all of these different things that then affect how we're feeling in our body, because we forget that this very much affects our bodily functions and our bodily feelings. It affects our thoughts, it affects our behaviors, and then it affects our actions. And so this just looking at our nervous system and regulating our nervous system can have a huge impact on how we show up in business, and that visibility aspect that I was talking about in terms of marketing. So the brain processes around 11 million bits of data per second, but the human consciousness only processes around 40 to 50. And that is because our brain uses, it's an amazing bit of kit, but it uses so many things to understand what it needs to delete, what it needs to store, what it needs to bring to our attention. And it does that so quickly. And it's based on what is important to us in our present world. And so we talk about the reticular activating system. That is where we notice things like, oh yes, that's important to what's happening to me right now. Which is why when we're in a bit of a thought spiral, when we're looking at things that maybe aren't going to plan, we start to see things more in our environment that actually cement that idea. it's not necessarily true. It's just what our brain is picking up on because it's important for us at that time. There's an argument out there that actually states that the amount of information the human consciousness of a HSP can actually process is more than 40 to 50. Now, I'm not sure how much research has gone into this, but there is an argument for this. I don't think it's necessarily been backed up by a huge amount of studies yet. So we'll see if that changes in the future. But if this is true, you can understand again, not just from a nervous system perspective, but actually just from a amount of things that we're processing every second perspective, you can see how again we can get easily overwhelmed in both camps. And if I talk a little bit more about our brain and the processing, we do like to, as highly sensitives, and I know I'm generalizing a lot here, but hopefully you can see yourself in some of these bits, we do like looking in more detail at something. And what I mean by this is, I always used to think, well, I'm not like that because I'm not bothered about, if I'm working on a piece of work, for example, I'm not worried about getting every single detail perfect. But what I do love doing is research. So when I recently looked at some supplements to help me health-wise, I got lost in a thought spiral, or research spiral, shall I say, about researching supplements. What was the best one? How were they going to help me? What were they going to look like? And I just went down and down and down. So for you, it might be the same. You might be different in the fact that you do get really caught up in the details of something that maybe you're creating as well. But for me, it's that research spiral that I tend to go down quite a lot. And as a result, we are quite good at seeing if we're creating something and planning something. So I'm going to take this back to being an entrepreneur and being in creative mode. We're great at being able to see that big picture and where it's leading to, but we can also see the small steps that are going to get us there. And so we can see the path, the trajectory, and the steps. And that's a wonderful thing in some ways. It really is a gift. Again, very, very big on just highlighting the gifts here. But as with gifts, there's always a flip side if we're not careful and if we're not aware. And the flip side to that is, because we can see the big picture and the small steps, and we love looking at detail, like data and details and research, we can often see lots of different big pictures and lots of different steps to get us there. And we can often get caught in these thought spirals where we start second guessing ourselves and we don't take action on something because we can see so many variations. We might see some that don't work as well. We might see some that work better. And then we start to go, oh, but what if this one goes off on this trajectory and this happens? And this is often why and this is a personal opinion, that I think that we look for external validation so much more than what may be considered normal, because we just want somebody to validate all of these different things. Like, I've got all of these ideas, which is the one that I should be focusing on? I just need somebody to help me. Does that make sense? I hope that tracks. And so if we just kind of potted on and we left all of these things unchecked, you can understand how being an entrepreneur as a highly sensitive is a complete minefield. And one of the things that I feel really passionate about is to support people to really get that grounded foundation. And I know this from myself, and I know this from my clients. The more we make decisions from a grounded place where we know ourselves well, where we know what our triggers are, and we know that actually, like I was saying before, when something does come left field, I do go into myself, I do become introspective. And having somebody to support me who sees that and is able to kind of maybe bring me out of it, or to get me to see things differently, to remind me that actually there are very much gifts in this as well, I think is such an important part of this. So the first thing that I think doesn't get shared in the online space as much, because maybe, and this is again a guess, maybe if you're not highly sensitive, you don't need it as much. I would argue that everybody needs it a little bit, but I definitely know highly sensitives need it. And that is understanding yourselves better and really being able to regulate your nervous system. I have this in every piece of work that I do. So whether that's one-to-one work or whether that's my mini course that I've got, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Like, one of the foundational pieces is how to understand yourself better. So in my work, it's very much understanding your mindset gremlins, as I like to call them. What are your thoughts that may be leading you into those thought spirals that are really not supporting you and not supporting your business? Then it's the emotions, because our body talks through the emotions, and we really do need to bring the body on board here. What are your emotions telling you? How does that feel in the body? How can we process these emotions so that we don't get stuck in frustration or stuck in anger or stuck in sadness? How can we process them to come out the other side? And that awareness piece of all of those pieces together helps us to understand ourselves better, and it helps us to regulate our nervous system when we are trying something new, like starting a business or growing our business, because then we have that foundational work to continue to come back to. So we're not relying on hustle or push through, or should I say even burnout. And I know relying on burnout sounds bizarre, but that kind of attitude of I'll just keep going. I'm just going to keep pushing through, even if I'm burnt out, even if I'm exhausted. We don't want that, do we? Because that's not going to be something we enjoy. It's not something that we're going to be wanting to show up for. We really do need to understand our nervous system and how it is for us individually, because we are all, even if we're highly sensitive, we're all individual on what that looks like, what our triggers are, what our emotions show us, etc. So really understanding that, and I think that's such a big piece that often doesn't get talked about. And like I said, it's there in all of the work I do because I know how important that is. The second piece that kind of builds on this, that I really think supports us in terms of visibility and showing up and being, if you like, that expert and that authority in your industry, is understanding your values, your priorities, what you stand for and what your business stands for. And again, I see a lot of people skip this step because we want to get into the action piece, because we want to go and just get it done. And I get that. I've been there. I know what it feels like. But I know that I had to go back and do this work in order for my content to work better. So this is about understanding you on a much deeper level, so that you can actually show up as you in your work, rather than feeling like you have to follow somebody else. And going back to what I said earlier, when we can often see the big picture and the details, and we often think, well, which path is it then? Because we can see variations. What often happens, I feel, and I've been here myself, and I've seen clients do it, is we often get the shiny object syndrome, because we just want somebody to help us understand the steps that we need to take, because there are so many variations in our heads and we can see them all play out. And so we're looking for that validation from somebody else. And that's why marketing can be so powerful in a negative way and a positive way. So one of the things that I think is so vital is to go over these values, priorities, what you stand for and what your business stands for. Because once you know this about yourself and you build it onto that nervous system work, you are less likely to be drawn into that shiny object syndrome, because you can always come back to your grounded truth and what's important for you and how that works for you. I know I keep saying that, but I think it's so important. I've been seeing quite a few posts about how marketing has really, done its job, but not necessarily in a positive way, and encouraged a lot of women to dim down their own truth and instead follow somebody else's pathway. And I've never stood for that in business. For me, that's not coaching, that's more consultant work, and that's more mentoring. Coaching is about understanding what works for you as the individual. And this is such an important part for this. And I promise you, if you get these two bits of foundational work into your life, business becomes easier. And I'm not going to say it's easy, but it becomes easier because you know what pathway you're on and you know what is important for you to take a stand on, or what is important for you and your business to take action on. You're no longer pulled in loads of different directions. It's very much in alignment with you and what's important for that. So values, I remember when I first started out and somebody talking about values, and I was like, oh, that's not an easy question to answer. Like, what are my values? There are loads of values tests or quizzes that you can take online. My way of looking at it is, if you're struggling with what are my values, look at what are your priorities. What are your priorities in life? Like, what is it you hold dear to you? What is it that you think is important in your life? That's another way of looking at values. And then what you stand for. I like to make a list of, in terms of being visible and in terms of content, I like to make a list of what I am prepared to share about, like what I'm passionate about, what I think is important. Just so, again, I've got something to come back to time and time again. I also have made a list of things that I'm not prepared to talk about, that I am not going to stand for. So like I was saying, things for that I would consider more consultant work, things of just do this. That just attitude, that just energy. I'm not there for that because that's not how I work. It's not how I want my clients to be. I don't want my clients to be mini-me's. I want my clients to be them, and I want them to understand themselves better so they feel grounded in their business. I don't want them to have to rely on somebody else all the time. I want them to feel that they can rely on themselves, and they start to create that inner validation rather than looking for that external validation. So looking for your priorities, what you stand for as a person, like what's really important for you in life, what are the things that you hold dear and true, and then in society, what do you stand for in society, what is important, and then that extra bit of what does your business stand for. So just to kind of give an example here, my priorities: freedom, family, health. Those are my priorities at the moment, and they do change slightly. Family is always there, health is always there. Making a difference is always a big one for most HSPs, that's up there. And then what I stand for. So standing for doing things your way, understanding yourself better, true coaching. These are things that I stand for. What does my business stand for? My business stands for supporting highly sensitive to see the gifts that are really underneath all of maybe that self-doubt and lack of confidence. There is so many nuggets of gold in every single client I work with, and they don't often see it. And I feel that it's my business's job to actually draw that out for people to feel empowered. I want to be part of that ripple effect where I support somebody else to feel that they can shine, that they can pass on their knowledge, and so forth and so forth. So those are just a few bits off the top of my head. I could write it down and go into deeper detail, and I have done on numerous occasions. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but those are just some of the ideas. I would really invite you to look at this, because the more you do this, and you will revisit it time and time again, but the more you do this, the more grounded you feel in the work that you're doing, and the less likely you are to be pulled in different directions. You know, you may well need support with this to start off with. That's absolutely fine. Give me a shout if that's something you're looking for. But I do feel that you could start to do this work yourself and see what comes up for you. The beauty of having somebody in your corner is they can often see something, especially if they're a good coach, they can often see something in you that maybe you don't see yourself. Like I do that with my clients all the time. I'm like, can you see that you're amazing at doing this? Or can you see that the way that you react to this is a gift? Like all of those different things that maybe you can't see because it's your norm, it's normal for you. And I'm just going to wrap up by bringing in, I mentioned it earlier, so I have a mini course, The Quiet Authority. And this was something I have been quite reluctant to promote. It's been something I've been incredibly passionate about, but reluctant to promote because the coach side of me and the teacher side of me, who is so used to getting that in real-time feedback from somebody, doesn't like the fact that I'm putting a course out there that I can't get that real-time feedback from. So what I have done to appease that side of me is I put all of my thoughts together in a huge course, and then I had 4 beta testers to go through it. We went over it, they gave me feedback, I streamlined it, and I will continue to streamline it as I get further and further feedback. But at the moment, it's gone through I think it's through its second kind of reiteration at the moment of bringing everything together and streamlining it. So it is ready, and at the moment it's only £29 for the month of August. And in this course, you will find how to create content that converts for highly sensitives. And it's got a little bit of market research in there because it's really important that we actually understand our audience. We've got the actual content, how to create it in 3 easy steps. Now, the highly sensitive part of me wants to just reassure you that there is a lot more to content that you can add in, but I've streamlined it to these 3 points, and it's very much based on who you are as a person. And I know that I keep saying that, but this is how we actually do create content that converts. So the 3 steps in there that really help you to understand yourself better, but how to create content. And then the 3rd module is all about embodiment. So this is talking about your nervous system and how to support you to regulate that when you're feeling frustrated, when things aren't going as well. So there very much is a little bit about mindset gremlins, some thought work, some emotion work, some somatic work, understanding how to actually process your emotions so that you're not stuck in that emotion. So that is all included as well, because I wanted to give that holistic feel. I wanted you to feel like you were being coached by me one-on-one. So that is the intention for the Quiet Authority. As I said, it's for £29 at the moment, and I'll put the link in the show notes. I would love for you to give me your feedback, tell me how you're getting on with that. And I hope that this episode has resonated with you and you can take something from it. And if you have been caught in the shiny object syndrome, or you have been caught in getting waylaid by what other big marketers have been talking about in terms of hustling or just attitude, just do this, just do that, then I hope this has given you a different perspective to think about, and a more grounded, holistic perspective that you can go away and think about and hopefully feel more in alignment with what you want to achieve. That's my aim anyway. So I'm always open to you getting in contact and let me know how things are going for you. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode. Sending you so much love, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you have any takeaways or any questions, please do reach out to me either through Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook at Kate Carter Coaching, or you can email me at kate@katecarter.co.uk. I always love to hear your feedback and the things that you have taken from the podcast. If you know of any other highly sensitive people, then please do share this so that I can reach more and support more highly sensitive people to embrace their strengths and gifts. As a thank you, I will pick a winner every month for a free 50-minute coaching session with me. Thank you so much.